Hi guys, it's Erica. I'm just making this video as like a my story video, and it's just gonna be like a quick little snapshot of my life and how I knew I was trans. Um, Now, as far as transgender people go, it's very wide. Some people realize it when they're 3, 5, 7, later in life, and they're not happy. Um, I first felt I first started to feel different when I was 8. And I guess I had a normal childhood. Like, nothing was just bad. I mean, I loved playing outside and just being a kid. But something just didn't feel right. And I never talked about it with anybody. But it wasn't until I was 11 where I found out what transgender was. And I found out about it in the dumbest way possible. I was watching some stupid cartoon show where like a guy got turned into a girl or something, and I was like, that's what I want. And I like scoured the internet trying to find what a way to do it. Obviously you can't, but it was interesting. So once I learned about how and what like how I felt, and I at first I was withdrawn. Like, I realized that I couldn't put my family or friends through any of that, and I honestly thought that if I just ignored it, it would go away completely. So that's what I tried to do. Um, Pretty much up until I was 21, I guess. I started cross dressing at 11, and I did it as frequently as I could. And I had my first job at 14. I started buying things and just expressing myself in private. And I wouldn't tell anyone. I was so scared of just someone outing me or doing anything else. And one part of me wanted to go through with the transition, and the other part just wanted everything to stay the same, and still believed if I had ignored it, that it would just go away entirely. So I still just kept trying to ignore it. And when I was in high school, around seventh grade, up until I was in 11th grade, I got bullied really, really badly for the stupidest things imaginable. So I became even more withdrawn, and I was just really depressed. I didn't want to be anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I went and saw a therapist for a little while, but my family wasn't very into it, and neither was I. So I just sort of shoved myself into my work. I worked in a job as a dishwasher, and then I worked at an ice cream store, and it was really great at first. And then I became a senior. I graduated. I did that, and I went to school. I moved down to Florida to go to school, and at this time I still was trying to throw myself into something and just ignore it and go away. So I guess everything kept going a little bit more towards depression, and I started to become a little bit suicidal. I had thoughts. Um, Now, fast forward a little bit, I'm a pilot. I have my pilot's license, and it's kind of discouraging to want to talk to somebody when you have your pilot's license because they immediately put you on a hold where you can't fly by school. So I didn't do that. I did go see a counselor off campus and talk to her, and I was still trying to even mention I was trans. It was just depression and trying to get over things, I guess. So that was my sophomore year. My freshman year, I went home like 4 or 5 times, flew back home, like a 2.5 hour flight, and I would basically cross dress when I was home, express myself in private, and then I would come back to school and pretend everything was fine and just pretend everything was normal. So my sophomore year, I roomed with my first roommate, another friend, and this narcissistic asshole who made me and my other roommates' lives absolutely hell on campus. We moved out because of him. My one friend moved off campus to him. I left. I got so depressed and sad, and I thought I was going to kill myself for real, that I left. I kind of had a mental breakdown. I was seeing a psychologist off campus still, and I just I don't know, I convinced myself that I wasn't, that school wasn't right for me, I guess. So I went back home and I figured I'd go back to community college and just work if I could work and be at school at the same time. It would be fine. So right there is kind of a turning point. I was 19, turning 20. I left in December, and as I was leaving, I told my one friend Susan essentially everything, and we probably talked every day for 6 months on some sort of channel, whether it be text messaging, Snapchatting, or Skype. And I think she really did like save my life. I'm not sure if I would have killed myself or not, but it's a real big possibility. So I continued to do that. I worked, um, became to express myself very more. I talked to Susan like all the time about stuff, and it was about March, April. I had decided I wanted to go back to school back in Florida. So, long story short, I did that. Came back. I was still depressed, but I was kind of like, I don't know. I came back and I just kind of went a little wild. I started expressing myself like crazy, just buying a bunch of clothes and just hanging out and having fun. I started seeing a psychologist, the same psychologist as I was before, and I had changed my major to where I wasn't flying anymore because I knew I wanted to transition, and I knew I couldn't be a. It's significantly hard to be a pilot and be transgender at the same time. So I was going to get a major in something else. So I did that. Um, well, that psychologist got pregnant, or was pregnant, and she had her baby and kind of just cut me off. It was really rude, I thought. So, in fast forward, we go down to February. I started seeing a gender therapist. I looked and started doing it. March 1st was my start date. And I kind of just ripped the band aid off, and I was just like, said everything, blah, blah, blah. This is why I'm here. I hate talking about stuff. Yeah. So I did that, and for the first time, I guess things started looking up. Um, my so when you transition, you have to see a therapist for 3 months before you can even start hormones. But I came out to a few more friends and got more support and stuff. And I told my parents on Mother's Day. God, I'm still getting shit for that. And it's not like even ruined Mother's Day. I told her, my mom, at like 10 o'clock at night. So it's like, okay. But I was like getting nauseous because I wanted to tell my parents. And I couldn't do it. Like I was huddled over my toilet being sick because it was like just making me so sick that I couldn't tell them. So I did that, and they didn't understand. I came out to them through a letter or an email. Like it was this like 2 page long letter of explaining it, and my mom just sort of freaked the fuck out, shut down, um, and kind of just turned into a total bitch. So it was like that way for like 2 months, and I was at school all summer as well. So it was like that way, and I was trying to get her to talk to a therapist, and she refused because she's my mom and she thinks she can solve everything by herself. Eventually, I worked on my therapist. She talked to her and them, and my parents fully support me at the moment because I go to school. So I used the money that they give me per month, and I budgeted it, and I went and made my appointment to start hormones. So I started hormones, and I kept thinking to myself, I can't start hormones and not tell them. They kind of have a right to know. I don't want to show up one day out of the blue, like 4 or 5 months from now, and look a little bit different, and then have it now. So I told them. My mom freaked the fuck out even more, and so they had this emergency session with my psychologist, and it was a turning point for them. I think I never talked about it with my dad, but I guess my dad talked to the therapist a little bit, and he's just like, "This is kind of above my head. I support my kid. All that's it. I just want the best for them." So my dad was like on board, and I guess my mom was on board, and yeah, it's kind of, we haven't really talked about it, I guess, which is kind of awkward. Like, my parents pretend everything's fine, and on one hand, I want to talk about it, but on the other hand, I'm just like, it's so volatile to talk about it with them with anything that I don't want to. And then lately, I've been wanting to tell my brother, which is a whole nother video on its own. But back to that, things are going good, and that's kind of like my coming out story. Um, Now, if we rewind a little bit back to my sophomore year when I left that semester, my turning point there was I was trying to keep myself so busy, so I pledged a fraternity. And I figured if I'm just doing something constantly all the time, I won't be able to think about it. I can't do anything. So I was literally busy like every minute of every day. If there's one thing you learn, it's time management. Like, I didn't even have a half hour to eat lunch or dinner every single day. It was stupid, but it was kind of fun at the same time. And I left, and when I came back, they wanted me to pledge again, and I was like, no, guys, it's not gonna work for obvious reasons. I didn't tell them, but yeah. So that was really bad decision, I guess. Just ignoring it, it didn't. Ignoring the whole problem did not cause it to go away, and I guess I should have gotten help when I needed it in the beginning. And if there's one thing I learned, it's talk about your problems, because putting them down in the deepest, darkest place in your body and mind does not help anyone. It just turns you into a fucking asshole. But thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe. I'm trying to do more videos. I'm just lacking kind of inspiration. So if you want to leave me some comments on what to do, you're more than welcome. Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Bye.